Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of the CI Chit Chat. My name is Mitchell Hora. I'm the founder and CEO here at Continuum.ag. Getting some rain, and it's a sloppy mess down here in Southeast Iowa today, but we'll take it. And we've got a lot of snow on the ground, so getting some additional moisture, getting some rain is definitely all right. In today's show, I'm running it solo here. So we've got plenty of time that we can get to your questions, whether that be put questions in the chat or maybe if there's a couple that want to come on camera and want to be asking the question live, where we can have a conversation. Definitely all for that. We've got some time to be able to get that done here today. Just like we always start on the CI Chit Chat, just kind of reminding everybody of starting from scratch. If you're new, we continue to get new folks registered for this all the time. So if you're new, um, keep in mind that CI is an acronym for carbon intensity, and it essentially is the carbon footprint per bushel or the amount of carbon footprint going into that production unit, that unit of outcome. So think of it as on a farmer basis, think of it as all your inputs going on per acre divided by the outcome or the yield per acre. And this is important and continuing to gain incredible traction because of the new 45Z amendment to the 45Z tax credit. It's part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Biofuel companies can earn tax credits for lowering their carbon intensity of the fuel. And if you are lowering the carbon intensity of the fuel, you could do that by having low carbon corn to go into that fuel. At Continuum Ag, we've been helping farmers to quantify the carbon intensity of their corn. And what we found is that today, our average farmer CI is 9.9. The typical default that's put on us by the US Department of Energy is a score of 29, 29.1. Every single county is a little bit different. A lot of our marketing, we really try to make it as simple as we can. We don't want to cause additional confusion, but everyone just know it is on a county by county basis. But we typically say 29.1. That's Champaign County, Illinois, and a typical kind of score. So the typical score is 29.1. We've found that our average farmer is 9.9. Call that a 20-point decrease. Huge opportunity for farmers and biofuel companies to work together. The typical gallon of ethanol has a CI score of around 55. If your CI score is 55, and typically the corn contributes 29 of those points, and if you lower that corn component by 20 points, like we found our average farmer to be, and you take that off of the 55 number, now we're talking about fuel with a CI score of only 35 with the average bushel of corn that we've quantified so far. Huge opportunity here for farmers to be part of this solution, but we do have a lot of quantification to do, a lot of work to be done. More folks keep coming in. Appreciate that. We do have all this recorded, and every episode is recorded. If you want to share, or want to help spread the word, or want to go back and view previous content or view this, it'll be on the Continuum Ag YouTube page and also on our podcast, the TopSoil podcast. If you've got questions, I'm solo here today, so put those questions in the chat and would love to get to them. Or if somebody's got a question too long for the chat, can even have you come on and ask it live on the show. So, quick recap: CI, essentially the carbon footprint per bushel, and we need to get this done because of these biofuel organizations. The quick update from my side of things: we're hosting a webinar here later on today. It's at noon Central, and I'm going to be having on one of the higher ups at the USDA. We've got like 300 folks that are registered for this event, looking for a big turnout of those to join us live. But at noon Central today, I'm doing a webinar with USDA where we're going to be getting their inside scoop on what's going on in DC when it comes to carbon intensity, 45Z, farm bill, overall just farm policy. So be able to go a pretty broad spectrum of direction, and would love to have you on asking your questions too excited for that chat. So noon today, you got to register. You should have an email that would have came out from our email system. There's material on our social media pages as well, or on our Continuum.ag website. So be sure to join us on that here later today. Some other updates, been talking with a lot of different biofuel companies. What's really fun here as we continue to progress into 2024 is this is go time. This is the year. So the 45Z tax credit is due to start on Jan 1, 2025. That means fuel being produced 11 and a half months from now or less. So that fuel produced on Jan 1, 2025 needs to be as low a carbon intensity as possible. So how do you create low CI fuel on Jan 1, 2025? Your bins need to be full of low CI corn on December 31, 2024. And leading up to that, of course. So how do you get that done? Well, you got to be buying low CI corn grown in 2024 to have your bins full. And typically, these biofuel plants have a couple months worth of grain storage, a couple months worth of or a couple months worth of fuel storage. Let me see. I actually have a note and some data from one of my buddies who's a CEO of one of the ethanol plants. I was asking him about how long does it take. So as we think about the grain storage, trying to figure out how long does it take to cycle through some of that corn. How much storage do they have? How much storage of corn? How much storage of fuel? And how long does it take to go from corn to fuel? And my buddy that runs an ethanol plant, that we've been talking about this a lot, he said that fermentation at their facility takes about 80 hours. But the entire process from grind to finish, 96 hours. That's it. So that bushel of corn that's just sitting in the bin, as it goes through the system at the ethanol plant, from the time that it leaves that holding bin to the time that it is now ethanol sitting in the tank, 96 hours. Okay, so fairly fast turnaround time, I thought. But they are cranking through, cranking through that grain on hand, continuing to cycle through. So essentially meaning, that corn that they're going to be buying at the end of this year, they're going to want to cycle through any unknown CI grain or cycle through that old crop and make sure that come end of the year, they're sitting there with as low of CI corn as possible to be creating as low of CI fuel as possible. So how do we get that done? Well, we need to know what the CI of the corn is, and this works for soybeans, of course, too. We need to know what the CI of the crop is throughout calendar year 2024. And we have to document, get it verified in order to get paid. And lots of these ethanol companies I'm talking with talking about sharing a significant portion of the tax credit with the farmer. Nobody is in a position to really come out and make any public comments yet, but I'm excited to continue to have those conversations with biofuel companies. And I do think that there will continue to be announcements coming in the coming weeks and months from different biofuel companies that are saying, yeah, we want to do something here. For all of you that's on the call, be talking with your biofuel company, asking them what's going on with this CI thing. What's going on with 45Z? How do we get in position for it? Do you guys know what you're going to be paying for the farmers? I'm a farmer that could be producing this low carbon corn. I'm trying to figure out how do I market my grain. I've got to think very long term. Help me out. What are you guys thinking about this thing? Be asking them those type of questions to figure out where's their head at. Now, keep in mind, the local grain buyer might not necessarily know what exactly is going on from 45Z and from these carbon intensity tax credits. Those initiatives are really coming from the top, and the folks that are at that CEO, CFO level, they're still trying to sort it out. Okay, so don't be surprised if your go-to person that you interact with, if it's a guy at the local location or the grain buyer, merchandiser, they might not know exactly what's going on. So we need to continue to push on them though, and drive that up the chain. And folks at that C-suite level, they're trying to navigate as well. Going to a lot of different conferences, a lot of folks or a lot of dust that's got to settle with the IRS rules. But nonetheless, we know that the farmer piece is could be the biggest part of the solution, but we've got to get ahead of it and getting some of that score. So, couple different questions there. So part of that being, okay, how do I get my score? Okay, you can Google the GREET model and you can go figure that out. It's fairly complicated. We've really tried to simplify it. You go to TopSoil.ag and you can get that score. We have a small paywall on it, but really think, understand what that score is going to be critical. You can talk to a TopSoil rep. They can get it to you. One of my folks, they can get you that score, get you a pretty good idea of where you are so that you can have a educated conversation with that grain buyer. And but at the end of the day, what we're all going to need to do is we've got to have our CI scores verified at the field level, therefore verifying X number of bushels. So how this will end up working and the conversation that I'm having with these biofuel plants is that myself as a farmer, so Mitchell Hora will have X amount of bushels of verified grain. Call it, I'm small, but let's use easy math of 50,000 bushels or something like that. Say I've got 50,000 bushels of corn and they have a verified score of minus 4.1, which is where I was this year. I now have 50,000 bushels with a score of minus 4.1. That is what's getting verified. And then as I sell those loads of grain, it decreases my grain on hand or that I've verified. And as I sell those loads, Continuum.ag helps me to put that CI score, the verified score, link it to the scale ticket. We're working with a variety of companies that help to do that. So a couple different questions kind of coming in here in the chat. Definitely feel free to put them in or raise your hand if you've got a question that you want to ask. Plenty of some time here to get to some of those. But a question here on frost-seeded cover crops. Can we do that to lower your CI score for this year's crop? And maybe be able to do some frost-seeded cover crop here yet this spring. I don't know exactly, okay? And that's part of where we don't know the current rules yet. It's worth a try. Toss out some cover crop here this spring, a light rate maybe of an oats or a head of corn. You can do some kind of a clover, like a crimson clover to toss that on here this spring. I've seen guys do red clover. We've tried some alfalfa, some frost-seeded alfalfa. Wasn't necessarily something I'd recommend yet, but experiment with some of these frost-seeded covers if you want to, and might be able to be utilized as that cover crop. What I anticipate will happen though is that the IRS will utilize USDA guidance around programs such as the CSP program that does have guidance around rates, species, planting dates, termination dates. I'm assuming they're going to utilize some of those specifics, but also keep in mind this is government program here, and the folks might not necessarily talk to each other across the hall and down the road from each other, meaning the IRS and USDA. I would encourage them to talk to each other, but who knows if that's actually really going to happen here. So, okay, good question here from Wes in the chat as well. Do we need to be able to store our grain until late December to take advantage of the credit? I don't have on-farm storage. Wes, maybe, but also I think the opportunity here is to be talking with the elevator, talk with the guys at the co-op who you're typically selling the corn to and be asking them, how are they going to tap into this? It's the same kind of thing. Okay. So we, on our farm, we have some on-farm storage and we sell some grain straight to town. The grain that's going straight to town will come from that specific field and therefore will have the CI score of that individual field. So if you're selling straight to town, you'll know that it came from the front 40 and here was the CI score of the front 40. Therefore, every load that comes off the front 40 will have the CI score of the front 40. And then all those loads that go to town, each has a CI score, whether it be a grower CI score that we help to quantify and it's a verified score, or they'll have the default score of that 29 number. Every load that goes to town, goes to the elevator, gets commingled, and every load that goes in, the updated calculation will be ran for the weighted average CI score. So for easy math, call it 1,000 bushels going in, and you have a 50,000 bushel bin. 1,000 bushels going in. There's already 40,000 bushels in the bin. Now the combined 41,000 bushels has a new weighted average CI score. That 41,000 bushels now, when the elevator sells it to the ethanol plant, they're going to be asked, what is the CI score? And they're going to want to tap into some of these premiums too. In order for that co-op or the elevator to earn these tax credit premiums, they need to have the data. And the ethanol plants need to be working with these folks because that's where a lot of the grain goes today. We've got to get this really built up in order for the ethanol plant to communicate with that elevator. They need to start figuring out deals and agreements and how are they going to share in some of this revenue in order for the elevator to start communicating with guys like US and other farmers to say, hey, we can help to physically aggregate this grain. We can help to digitally aggregate these CI scores. Get yourself in position with this data so that we can pay you for your contribution. We will then blend the corn together and be able to make some margin in selling it to the biofuel companies. It's the exact same thing that they do today. And that's why I'm so bullish on this concept. Today, farmers sell their grain to that elevator. If it doesn't meet spec, meaning like for poor moisture, for example, if it doesn't meet the moisture spec, it gets docked. You don't get a premium if it's great quality. You just get docked if it's poor quality. But then what do? They blend the grain together. And then when they sell it, they're looking for that standard yellow number 2 corn at the end of the day with 56-pound test weight and call it 15 or 15.5% organic matter. But they dock folks who don't meet spec, blend it with the good crop, and at the end of the day, it's all good coming out the other end. What I believe they'll do here with the CI piece and what the conversation I'm having is that they'll pay a premium for that low CI grain. They won't pay a premium for corn that doesn't have a score or isn't verified. They won't pay for that, but then they'll blend those bushels physically and digitally, and therefore every bushel has a weighted average CI score that's slightly lower than just going with the default, and therefore they'll be able to make a small premium on every bushel coming out the other side. So same type of concept as the physical aggregation of grain. That's why I'm so bullish on this concept of that low CI grain coming out the other side. Now, one of the things that they could also do to go on this a little bit more is they could technically segregate out the low CI grain, put that in one bin, put the unknown CI grain or the high CI grain in another bin, sell that into the livestock market or export market or whatever. And then they could sell the low CI corn to the biofuel plant. They might do that at the beginning here, but I think over time it's going to be easiest to just blend all that grain together and run the weighted average, and every bushel of grain on hand all has that same weighted average that is constantly being updated. So, okay, a couple questions coming in here. How does the 45Z tax credit play out when the grain is fed to the grower's livestock? Okay, the 45Z credit doesn't play out when the grain is fed to livestock. This is a fuel production tax credit. Okay, so it's biofuel manufacturers that earn the tax credit for lowering the CI of the fuel. They can lower the CI of any transportation biofuel. So that would include ethanol, like we usually talk, biodiesel, renewable diesel, and the big new craze, sustainable aviation fuel. So any of those biofuels can lower their CI score, report that CI to the IRS, and earn tax credits for lowering the biofuel CI score. In the livestock, and about 44% of US corn goes into that, large percentage of soybeans. That's why they start there. On the livestock side, they don't have tax credits. They don't have the ability to pay for these low CI grains today. And why I keep harping on it is they need to get ahead of this. Most of my corn today goes to feed pigs. There's no premium for low CI pork. The packers have sustainability goals. The financial institutions have sustainability goals. But right now, there's no actual financial structure and business model to pass along from those financial or corporate sustainability goals to the hog producer or the pork producer, and therefore to the grain producer that's producing the crop that's going to feed those hogs. There's no business model for that. I believe that these tax credits are going to force the livestock industry to have to respond. Very interesting to see different groups that are catching on. I had a call last week with one of the country's largest berry growers, like strawberries and blueberries and stuff like that. And they hit us up trying to figure out, hey, how do we do low CI berries? Because we know that it's not necessarily going to be carbon offsets. We need to work internal to our producers, help them to lower the footprint of their production, and we can utilize that and market it. And we're looking at paying a premium for low carbon intensity berries. I think the same thing is going to happen in the livestock side. We need to be getting that worked out. Livestock producers, there is not that credit today. There's not a premium today. We need to be talking with the packers. We need to be talking with the bankers and figure out, and all the way through to the end consumer, to figure out how, if these companies actually want sustainability, if they actually want low carbon, if they actually want these things that they currently market and that they say that they want, now there's some precedent on the scoring system and the financial system, and we need to get those markets built out. I do think that they're coming, but I don't know if they're going to be there in time, because everybody continues to discount the opportunity of this 45Z low carbon biofuel thing. And I don't know that they're paying attention close enough. I think they're going to be disrupted from a cost of grain standpoint. They need to get ahead of this and get it figured out. How much recommended score of carbon for cotton? So what's the recommended score for cotton, Naheem? Thanks. We don't currently score cotton. Okay, we utilize the GREET model, which is the U.S. Department of Energy tool. It can score corn, soybeans, sorghum, rice, and canola is being added currently. We're directly in conversation with the Argonne National Lab, and a variety of interesting things happening there. On the cotton side of things, there is a tool called the Cool Farm tool. It's a little complicated for my liking, but I know that it can put a CI score on cotton. Also, I know our buddies over at Arva are working on some cotton stuff as well. I'd hit them up and see if there's some opportunities there. Also, in the US, there's the Cotton Trust Protocol, there's not major premiums. And again, this is a biofuel tax credit that we're talking, but I know companies that are looking at how do we take the concept and build out the models for the cotton side of things. So a couple different ideas there. Cool Farm Tool, Arva, Cotton Trust Protocol, a couple groups to take a look at, because it's just not we got to stay focused at the Continuum side. I think we will add some stuff as we go forward, but not right now. Perfect timing. My buddy Matt Rollick. Matt, if you're hearing this,
Yeah, sure.
Naeem just put a comment in the chat asking about low carbon cotton. You guys might have a conversation. I think Arva's got some opportunity in that space.
We
Uh,
do. We do. Absolutely.
you guys could score low carbon cotton right now, right?
We can. Yep. Yep.
Naeem and Matt, send each other a quick note. You guys can chat later, and see if there's some opportunity there. A couple more questions. Appreciate those coming in. How would you know your CI score this fall if you don't know your yield? Because the loads will be going to town before your total yield is finished. This is a great question, Tony. Something that we were just talking about here the other day. And really what it ends up being is when the low, so we're estimating what that CI score is going to be based on historical yields. Okay, so what we will have verified up until the day of harvest is everything leading up to harvest. So that's where we can start today. And we can run estimates for what the CI score will be based on the yield from historical yield, APH, things like that, and try to be as conservative in that number as we can. But before harvest, we're going to be documenting everything leading up to harvest. We need to document all the fertilizer applications, all the fuel that's been used, the pesticide that's been used. Did manure go on? If so, how much? Did we use a cover crop? We got to document all these things. And my anticipation is that we'll have the farmers, 90% of that data through verification before harvest. That way, when the yield data comes in, we can plug in the actual yield into the carbon models, and therefore it can go along on the scale ticket. That yield might have to be verified after the fact, or the farmer signs their attestation letter that the yield is true just like they do at the FSA office. At the FSA office, you can get audited, but really it ends up being you sign the attestation letter that this yield is legit, and that carries you through until that audit goes through. If you get audited, then there's additional data. I could see splitting these payments and thinking out loud for farmers stuff here too. I could see farmers getting paid an estimate for their CI score upon delivery, or maybe a small estimate upon signing a contract or signing the bid. And then at the end of the day, when all of that data is delivered, all the verification material, when the ethanol plant knows exactly how their financials are going to work out, then there could be a settling up for any amount of money still owed. Okay. I don't know exactly how that's going to work out yet, but I could see that as some of the conversations have progressed in the last couple of weeks, more folks talking that, if we're selling corn directly to town, that hasn't been fully through the final verification process yet, there could be kind of a two-prong approach to getting farmers paid. And we'll see what happens with that. But at this point, plug that data in as fast as we can. Okay, a couple other questions. Let me hammer through some. I know we're running out of time here. Can farmers receive payments for CI? Is it replacing what Indigo is attempting? Is the government involved? Can CI reduce insurance premiums? Sorry for so many questions. Oh, Rob, this is great. Question from Rob there in the chat. So farmers can receive payments for CI if they're selling into a biofuel marketplace direct or indirect through the co-op and earn a premium on 2024 crop. I don't believe you can layer these CI programs with other carbon offset programs. Now, the government isn't going to have guidance on that. I don't know that they're going to have their ducks in a row enough to know that, but the carbon programs that you may or may not have signed up for so far, they definitely have guidance in there that says you cannot double count and you cannot sell this carbon into a different program. So the government program might not know anything different. They're just trying to get the CI score of the grain, and they're making claims on that. But it's the carbon programs you're already involved with that you would definitely be in breach of contract if you were to choose to sell this carbon story into a CI program. Can CI reduce insurance premiums? I'm not seeing anything yet. That's an interesting idea that, you could have that CI premium would be additional potential revenue coming to your farm. It might make you more bankable, might make you more insurable. So I do think that there could be some things there. We're actually working on with a company that is looking at revenue protection insurance, or like a gap insurance for farmers that are taking the jump, that are changing practices to lower their CI. There is some pending opportunity to get an insurance program and revenue protection insurance for that. So happy to chat on that. And is government involved? Yeah, this is a government tax credit for biofuel production. It's called Section 45Z, and it was part of the Inflation Reduction Act. So question or a comment here from my buddy Matt from Arva. Livestock will have low CI as well. Pork, beef, poultry, it's coming. I totally agree. I got some meetings here with some poultry producers here this week. Like I mentioned, berries here the other day. I think that's why I'm so bullish. It's going to be this low carbon crop that gets fed, or this low carbon crop that gets turned into fuel. The fuel has the tax credit, but that tax credit is setting the precedent that these non-biofuel places are going to have to figure out. So livestock guys, and including myself, 90% of the corn that we grow goes to livestock. It doesn't go to biofuel. This is disrupting my operation just as much as it is yours, okay? But just know there's tax credits out there today for 2024 crop, but we'll see how non-government programs come to fruition for those other areas. Okay, a couple last quick ones here. 45Z appears to be specific to fuel production. Anything in the works for integrated livestock companies? I think we just hit on that. You're right. It is just fuel today because it's government. Okay. Government is looking at how did they, push some of their initiatives, and they're wanting to lower the carbon footprint of energy, transportation, agriculture, and food. Those are some of the biggest contributors to the US's carbon footprint. And this 45Z credit goes directly at that. Keeping with the theme from Brandon here, what about a digester we feed our cows? but with the methane generated from our digester count, not for 45Z. So there is other tax credits for green methane, lots of things to definitely be looking at there. So it won't directly tie in on 45Z, but Brandon, definitely look into some of that green methane production. There's absolutely credits that you can earn there, and of course premiums, for selling that. Couple of real quick ones, and we're out of time. Who's going to verify the CI scores? We work with a company called Eco Engineers, who basically at the end of the year or going on throughout the year will be passing along the data to them that says, hey, here's, for example, here's Mitchell's farm. He's got 10 different fields. Each of those 10 fields have X number of acres, or it has a unique ID, grower farm field. Here's the acres. Here's the bushels, or up until that point, anticipated bushels. And here's the CI score. And here's all the data to back that up. And they will be crossing our T's and dotting our I's. Whatever we claim, we need to have data to back it up and to verify that it's legit. So that's probably receipts, shape files. We have a scouting platform in our system, aerial imagery, whatever we can bring to the table to prove that what we are claiming is legit. We need to get all of that info into TopSoil so that it can be passed along to the biofuel, to pass along to that verifier. That's why we're pushing on. We got to get going on this now. It's going to be so much data, so much info that we got to put together. We have the folks and we continue to hire people like crazy. We also are tag teaming this with local agronomists, the guys that you're already working with on your farm to help you with data. We want to work with those folks to get all this pulled together. Multi-species, nope, nothing different than a regular cover crop, at least in today's version. Thanks for the info there, Joanne, on some of the links. We got to get wrapped up here for today. I know we're already over time, but appreciate all the questions coming in. If you want, hop on here later today at noon. We'll have another webinar with a high up guy from USDA. Check our social media for some of the details on that, or our website or our email. Appreciate everyone spending the time here. Really, really interesting stuff going on, and continue to pay attention here and be ready to jump in and get this going. We are going full bore, full speed ahead. This is where the puck is going. Hopefully it's 45Z and everything comes through exactly the way that we want. But as we've laid out here, this is going to be for the long haul. So appreciate everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you all later.